Okay, so we're gonna start a discussion now. I hope everybody had their refreshments. Do I close the door or? So just to kind of mention out, just try to please keep the questions and answers relevant to the topic, and don't ask us how to pray. We don't talk about that here today. But anyways, how we want to actually form it out is basically via open question and answers. If somebody has any comments, they can pass it on, and then somebody can pose a question, we'll try to answer. Feel free to jump in if it doesn't have to be just IHR answering any of the questions. If anybody else has any comment to make on a certain question or even the answer, it's basically the platform is such that we're trying to promote the open discussion. So everyone can participate in it. It's basically, at the end of the day, it's your platform. We are here because all you are here. And we want to be doing this more often. So if you have any comments, we'll start with the comments. If you have any comments to make, how we can improve this in future, because we're planning on doing this quarterly with all your support, inshallah. So we'll start off with that, and then we'll delve into the question and answer right away. Sounds good? All right, great. So any comments?
Been writing it up. Thank you so much. Right, this was an excellent presentation. You have done excellent work and everything. So, couple of things I just want to give the comments, like the way Jim talked about the cause and effect, about the nature, and also about how the cosmos and the universe is working. That's perfect. But I would like to add something based on questions, based on feedback, based on the debate. You said the book was balanced. This is the Qur'an is working towards this. Shaitan said when he started that the Qur'an is talking about the cause and effect. He is talking about what you have done. You will exactly see yourself at the end of the day, not a day of continuity. Based on these things, how Islam is a religion? Because Hinduism is a religion. We know that I and the God, direct connections. I don't need to do anybody else. I go to the Amazon, and I'm happy. Buddhism is a religion. Judaism is a religion. When we are talking about the rational thinking, when we are talking that abstract thinking based on the cause and effect, which is based on the whole society, then how come Islam is a religion?
First of all, let me pose a question to you. What do you understand by the word religion?
Religion is just like I cannot distinguish the word religion. If somebody said, okay, Islam is a religion and Hinduism is a religion. What is it?
May help him, as far as religion is concerned. I understand that religion is collection of different thoughts which man has made with the length of its history. And different localities, different communities collected that as their own religion.
And certain rituals.
Yeah, with certain rituals. But as far as the Quran is concerned, it has nothing to do with the religion, since it is wahi. It is direct from Allah.
It's a deen.
It's a wahi.
Yeah.
So it can't be a religion.
Yeah, so
It's a deen.
Yeah.
based on my comment, like it's better if we can say, Islam actually distinguishes itself from the religion. Islam by itself challenged to religion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why it is challenging? Because before Islam, the same practice is going on, right? Rituals and every single thing. That's the way he came over to stop it. But this is actually nothing related to the mankind. This is the way you have to work, and this is the other way.
Yeah. So I think that that's the what I was trying to talk about. That actually, even to say science and religion, it's meaningless because the Quran doesn't deal with those words. The Quran deals with knowledge, which is an integrated system, right? The Quran doesn't separate it. This is what human beings have done. Human beings have separated things into religion, non-religion, ritual, this and that. Really, when you look at the universe, everything is in submission to the Creator. Every single thing is in submission to an intelligence. Everything is intelligently designed, right? So it submits to the Creator. And so when we look at the universe, if we really want to understand it, we have to use our reason, because since it's based on cause and effect, so if we don't use cause and effect in our thinking pattern, then how are we going to understand it? And by using cause and effect and by looking at the universe, we realize that there is a balance, right? Al-Mizan, which is based on cause and effect. And therefore are told in the Quran explicitly not to upset the balance. It doesn't say create the balance, because the balance is already there. Even before human beings came, the balance was there. It's saying do not disrupt the balance. Don't mess it up. And that's the reason why we've been created. That's why this universe has been created in the balance, to see who would maintain the balance and who would disrupt the balance, and that is the test. So the word religion, it comes from, for example, if I say, a lot of these words in English have changed, right? For example, goodbye, it used to be God be with you. It changed to goodbye. The word religion, originally, it meant the same as amana. Amana means to confirm. It means to verify. And as I've said in one of the interview with Shabir Ali, let's say if you're in a dangerous neighborhood and you don't know that the door is locked or not, how are you going to find out? You're going to go and check it. That checking procedure, verifying, it basically, it's amana. That's what amana means. It means to confirm, verify. Once you know the door is locked, you feel secure. And that is also the meaning of amana. And once you feel secure, you feel at peace. So that's how the word amana is connected to Islam. Amana means, confirmation, which leads to security, which leads to peace. So the word amana is connected to Islam, but it can only happen through reason, rationality, right? So the word iman, in other words, is based on rationality. It's supposed to be. Now, what's happened over the centuries is that when certain groups want to control other groups, then they tell you not to use your reason. They say you have to come to us and obey us, and it's a way to control people. So over the centuries, what's happened is that initially when the human beings came on the scene, they were hunter-gatherers. They used to use their reason, because if they didn't use their reason, they'd die. They had to capture animals, And as people started to settle on farms and this and that, you had a hierarchical structure started to develop where you had the priests, and the priests used to work with kings, and they said, don't use your reason, come to us. Because they wanted to control. It has to control, actually. So this religions arose. But initially, it was just, it had to do with rationality and thinking and being in submission to God. So,
but the submission is based on the fundamental of cause and effect. The Quran said, believe on those things.
yeah.
Religion is the submission with other things. It's a spiritual base, totally different dimension. You cannot mix it. So when anybody, anthropologist or anybody,
Yeah.
when they do the study for religion, right, it's a psychological, I study about the Hinduism, I study about the Buddhism or Judaism, or any other, even the Christianity. When we start the constitution, the one thing to use the word, hey, if somebody starts reading about the Christianity, religion, there's a lot of contradiction. Because it's a religion, that's why it's a contradiction. Right?
Yeah.
But same word I use for the Quran, hey, this is the religion, but there's no contradiction. Two words, same thing, one book is saying it's a contradiction, second it's not contradiction. So I have to distinguish these two different parameters. So one parameter has to be absolute true. So therefore the Quran, this is what you mentioned, that we cannot say something, only the God, he's saying what he has been using his word. So he said this is actually the
Yeah, and deen actually, do you know what the root
is
meaning
a way of
But do you know what the root of deen is? The root of deen is also submission. The root meaning of deen is also submission, actually. It's what you submit to. So it's like, if you do not submit to, for example, the law of conservation of energy. Energy transforms into one thing or another. So if you do not submit to God, it is the human nature to submit to something else. Because submission is conserved. So that's why in the process, to you, your deen, and to me, my deen. Because the word deen is also, in other words, you might submit to, Kalima or something, or something in Hinduism, and because you're not submitting to God, then you start submitting to these man-made things. Because the submission is conserved according to the Quran. So, but if you use your reason, then you'll submit to that which is rational and that which is the reality, right? So
Okay.
I think if you want to.
Yeah. So moving on. You have a
I
question?
have one very fragile and very dangerous question.
Hold on. Sorry. Let me just.
What is happening in this world as per the commandments and desire of Allah? It is my strong belief Allah doesn't interfere in the affairs of human beings. He just created the universe, kun fayakun, and after that, the world, the affairs of the human beings are being controlled by some mafias, by some groups. I don't see the involvement of Allah in our affairs. So what do you have to say?
You see, in the Quran it says, and maybe others can jump in here, that Allah has control over everything, right? It says that in the Quran. So He has control over everything. So, but Allah's not going to change the way of the people unless they change it themselves. It says that too in the Quran, right? So there has to be an effort from our side. And if there's an effort from the side of most of mankind, it's not happening. But once that happens, then you'll see a lot of the help of Allah coming in a certain direction. And remember the verse I said in the Quran about the Quran. It says, we will show them our signs in the farthest horizon and within themselves until they know that this is the truth. This is not sufficient that your Lord, He's witness over everything. So what that verse is talking about the future. What that verse is saying is that we will show them our signs in the horizon, which is the outside knowledge. And then secondly, it says the inner knowledge. Because we as human beings look outside, so we have more knowledge of the outside first. So for example, astrophysics, cosmology, like a lot of these things, we have a lot of knowledge about them from this earlier on. But things like embryology and what is consciousness, we're kind of getting to know it now. That's why the Quranic verse is in that order. Even the order is interesting. But it's saying that Allah will keep showing these signs slowly, 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 until people realize that this, the Quran, is the truth. But it's not going to happen if mankind is not doing anything. Why should God help humankind if humankind doesn't want to help himself? So
I have just a small answer to.
Yeah.
Allah is controlling every nanosecond in the whole universe. Kulla yawmin huwa fi shan. God appears in every nanosecond with a different glory. So it means with His nature laws or qadr, everything is 100% perfect grip, and nothing in the physics or even our body can move without His qadr or laws, nature laws. But in human free will area, God has given la makafat amal. There is cause and effect. Cause and reason and its effect. Balance. So, but there is a difference between this law and physics law. This law has got a time period before the result can catch. You put the finger in the fire, it burns immediately. There is no time period involved mostly. But in cause and effect, makafat amal, Allah is controlling. But first human free will has to give the cause, and then the results are done immediately in Allah's Sari'ul Isra. And then they are behind a person, following him. And when that ajalum musamma is complete, they catch. In the meantime, if you do hasanat, good results, they subdue bad results. No result is gone. Result remains, but bad result does not appear. Hasanat eat up to sayyi'at. That's it.
All right, great. Thank you, Mr.
I have a
Mumtaz.
question in mind. I think Mr. Haq has taken a lot of pain to prepare his essay. In the last phase of his presentation, I noted a point which, to my mind, I think it requires review of the whole thing. Review of the whole thing means Quranic verses, Quranic words cannot be translated. This is how he made, in my humble opinion, he has not been able to grasp the basic idea, and accordingly the things are somewhat haywire. That is, he used the words birth and death. Birth, from birth, then the thinkers came up with the idea of birth control. There is a population explosion in the world. The birth control. What does it mean? The Quran says maut and hayat. Maut and hayat. Hayat and maut. Even living human beings, they may be termed as dead people. Maybe, if you don't mind, maybe a good number of us are living a life which is somewhat deadly. We are not following Quranic values. We are not a disciplined people. We have no power. Nations who are having power, they could be termed as they are the living people. They are dictating other people in countries that are far off.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Actually, can we? What was his exact question? Because we kind of like we're really short on time right now.
Right.
So
the
if
word,
you can convey your question
word
to us.
birth and
Okay.
I go back again.
It
The
could be other
birth
things.
and death.
So
So please elaborate.
Nadeem, do you want to
as
elaborate on it
what-
a little bit quickly?
What he meant.
Yeah. So, of course, birth and death, it means a number of things, and it becomes very clear according to the context of the Quran, for example, when it says that, those who are deaf and blind, because they cover up the truth. So it's not talking about it's talking about the cognition that people don't see the truth, so they're blind in that way. So, and, that they're, dead, so they're not conscious of God. So surely we can I agree, it can be used in that way. So it depends on the context too, right? So sometimes when you're saying dead, it actually means someone died basically. So you have to look at the context. That's why I'm saying it's very important to look at the context of these words.
Any other questions? You're in the back.
Sorry, just comment about. So what happens is because the Quranic literal consistency is maintained to a great extent, and that is very reliable, as opposed to a lot of the traditions or narratives that we have inherited or passed on. So I think it is extremely important that we establish the words and we stick to them. Words or meanings might change over time, but words as set in the Quran are set. So for example, the word deen, religion, Islam, Iman, and how they're always used consistently. That has to be established. Only then we talk about what they imply and how they connect together.
Yeah.
So, deen, religion,
Yeah.
usually means to tie up, actually.
Yeah.
That here's what I bind myself with.
Yes.
Religion is the same way.
Yeah, but the word religion generally implies blind faith, and
That's understood.
yeah, but so for example, so you have to be very careful, especially if we're trying to convey Islam as a rational belief system. So for example, when I gave my presentation in Poland, I didn't say Islam is a religion. It's a belief system, a rational, so you want to convey the proper idea. So you have to be very careful how you're using words these days. So if you say even, for example, I'm not saying you can't use the word religion, but, it depends on the, atmosphere and context. So even if you say there's a spiritual component of Islam, so someone might think of Sufism, mysticism, spiritual. What do you mean by spiritual? So we have to be very careful that we don't convey the wrong ideas when we use these words. So the Quran, for example, doesn't use the word spiritual. It doesn't. It doesn't use the word. The Quranic language is very speaks of things in a very integrated manner. It's a human being who's starting to split things now and get into. I'm into spiritualism. I'm into religion. Are you into religion? Oh, he has a lot of religiosity. What does that mean, religiosity? Right? So I think we have to educate ourselves how we use the words and when we use them, and so that we don't convey the wrong meaning.
Great. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a few comments. Actually, I may have comments on all the things which have been discussed. If I may,
Yes, please.
just quickly, for example, this deen versus religion has been discussed. That basically depends on the definition, how you define any word. And definition of all these words, all these adjectives, all these nouns is usually very difficult. Even after 1300 years, we are still struggling with certain words in Quran. What exactly does it mean? And we do translate differently in different countries and translating into different languages. So coming back to the definition, we have to define what exactly do we mean by any words which we use as a religion or a system of ethics or ethical system. Now, according to my definition, there are only 3 religions. But I'm not saying everybody should follow it. And I'm not saying I'm right and others are wrong. And those three religions are Abrahamic religions. The others are just systems of ethics. For example, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, any other religion that you can think of. But as I said, that's my definition, and I define by one single God. But Buddhism don't have a God. Hindus don't have just one God. They have many, six, all believe in one God. So the other thing we talked about, as the gentleman said over, the Sani Sahib asked a question, that God doesn't do anything. God doesn't have to do anything. God has created everything according to a system. And that system is working within certain laws that we know them as natural laws. And at the same time, he has given us free will, more free will than any other living being that we know of. And with that free will, he has given us another thing that other living bodies that we know of don't have, that's intelligence. And for example, you talked about bees, and I'll come to that too later on. All the animals have very limited intelligence, and they live on instinct. Those instincts work within the framework of natural laws. We also work within the framework of natural laws, but we use free will and intelligence that other living beings don't have. So that's the answer to that. One question that I might have, not question actually.
I'm not satisfied.
Sorry?
I'm not satisfied.
That's
I'm
fine.
not going to say more.
Okay. For now, whatever I said is free, but later on I can charge you and then see that you're satisfied. But for a limited time, I think that will happen.
Yeah.
You said something about the wahi being sent to bees. I think it's probably a different way that you look at what you exactly mean by wahi, because wahi is another noun. And whenever we have these nouns and adjectives, we sometimes confuse these things. Maybe you meant to say instincts, because bees and ants and the birds and all the animals we have, they live their life, probably 99% of their actions are equivalent to the instinctive behavior. We also have instinctive behavior, but that's probably 1% of our behavior, physical behavior. And maybe that's what you wanted to say.
This is a huge topic, but in terms of, the more they study animals, the more they realize that they have even some, like it seems that the Quran is saying they have semantic abilities, okay? That's in the Quran. But what I'm saying is that animal researchers are moving towards that. Now, of course, now you have to see why have animals been created. They have been created to maintain the balance, because if you remove an animal from its niche, you start collapsing the ecosystem. So that's their function, and they do not deviate from the laws. So I agree that most of their thinking is instinctual, but that doesn't mean they don't learn things. Now they find, that chimpanzees, and they look at a human being using something like that, then they use it, and then they teach it to others, right? So one thing we have to be very careful about is not to look at things from an anthropocentric viewpoint only, that only we can do it. Because every time we can say only we can do it, they find out, these chimpanzees, they're using sticks to get ants up. Oh, they're using tools. They're using this. But at the same time, the human being is kind of quite far ahead than the animals. I do agree with that. And because the human being has the ability to go against the balance, but the other animals don't. So this is the uniqueness of the human being. So when I gave my talk in Poland, I said, this is the uniqueness of the human being. It's in a kind of a negative sense almost, that we can actually go away from the balance, whereas the other things cannot. We can go away from the balance because we have a higher so-called intellectual capabilities, and we can use our hands, right? In the Quran, remember, it says that corruption has appeared on the land and sea because of what the hands of man have wrought. Allah has allowed this to happen so that perhaps you might return. You don't go around seeing, Exxon Valdez or some pollution caused by apes or something like that, right? Yeah. But the word, that's the interesting thing, the word wahi has been used, and I'm using it as an analogy. Because when the animals use wahi, they maintain the equilibrium. If we use wahi, what is our wahi? The Quran, properly, then what would the result be? we would also maintain equilibrium. Why have the chapters of the Quran been named as animals? Namal, Nahl. This is one of the main reasons, but there are other reasons too, which I won't get into. It's so that we are reminded that we must also use the wahi the way animals use the wahi 100%. We're not even using it 5%. You know?
Less than that, actually.
Yeah. And if we use the Quran and maintain the balance, this world would be almost a perfect system.
There has been a research on the language of the word, and I had a paper, a very interesting paper. Most of the words that we see, they have about 6 or 7 notes. Some words have up to about 12 notes. They keep repeating it. We simply don't understand them, but if you really record them, maybe one word at a time kind of thing, then you will see that you hear those repetition. And with the 6 to 12 notes, they do their business of life, because the rest of the things just come with instinct. And by the way, when I talked about instinct, I didn't say that no animal have any intelligence. They do, and that intelligence varies. There could be maybe 1% of their activities up to about 10% of their activity. Chimpanzee, for example, is the most intelligent animal. And in fact, one of the scientists did the experiment. It's very actually interesting. I won't take more than a couple of minutes, but they were adding to the vocabulary, they're teaching the vocabulary to this chimpanzee about things and the names. They will say, the person will say bottle, and there are many pictures. And even there's the bottle, there's a car, there's the house, there's everything. And finally they look around and say, we'll point at pot in that picture. And they showed them and taught this person, but not this person, chimpanzee 600 words. And once the guy inquired, says duck, or something like that, which meant the flying type of duck. He actually pointed out 2 things, a water pond and a duck, to show them this is that kind of duck that flies.
Yeah.
And I think he mentioned probably Canada goose, something like that.
Definitely, and there are many other reasons, and some new discoveries have been made, even to the extent of, if you were to develop a perfect society, then how would decisions be made? Yeah. And so if you study the bees, how they find their houses, they actually, if they want to change a location, a group of them fly for them, and they come back, and they do a dance on the other bees, right? And they say, that tells the kind of location, like if you're looking for a new home, you have different qualities and attributes. And these bees who are at the bottom level, they don't immediately agree with them. They also listen to another group who also goes and checks. And then, even then they don't agree, they go and confirm, amana, verification. They themselves go and fly and check to see whether what these other bees are saying, is it accurate or not. So there are a lot of things that the Quran is trying to teach us from the animals, in the sense that you have to confirm things, you have to verify. If you want to develop an Islamic system, for example, in the future, who knows, then you would have to base your laws on verification with reality, and see, okay, we prohibit alcohol for certain reasons, not because we're being very staunch or something like that, right? Yeah. There are reasons for it. So you do your research. So that's what the Quran is saying. Think, analyze.
Yeah, that's great. We only have about 10 minutes left, so let's just try to wrap it up in the next 5 minutes.
Maybe someone else on that side can.
Anyone else has any comments or questions?
I have my own question, but I want to have the response of Mr. Tusani. As he has told that God has created us, the universe, and he is just relaxing. He is not interrupting any mankind or in the universe. So, coming to his question, my views are that as far as the universe is concerned, Allah has created its rules and regulation, and not a single body and not a single creature is violating anywhere in the world. But as far as mankind is concerned, it has been violating in various eras. For example, Allah has said, "Inna arsalna ilaykum rasulan shahidan alaykum kama arsalna ila fir'auna rasula wa asa fir'auna rasula wa akhadnahu akhzan wabila." It is for us. Allah is saying, "Inna arsalna ilaykum rasul." No doubt we have sent messenger for all of you. We are also included in that. Shahidan, he is the witnessing. Kama arsalna ila fir'auna rasula. As we had sent to the Pharaoh, the Moses. The Moses presented his asa, the basic human rights, from in the cabinet of Pharaoh, but he had denied that, saying, "Ana rabbukum al-alam," that the economic system which I have implemented, that is the best one. But what happened there later on? Kama arsalna ila fir'auna fa asa fir'auna rasula. He violated that. Fa akhadnahu akhzan wabila. After that, we gripped him like what you can stick of a washerman, and he was beaten like that.
Without loss.
Wabila means the stick of washerman, as he repeatedly strike to remove the dirt and out of the cloth. So I think Allah is not relaxing. In various eras, Allah has given punishment to the people, to the various nations, by means of various natural disasters, and they were vanished from the earth. And we are waiting for the same result if we had not reformed our society to give the basic human rights to our locality, to our community. The time is coming. We will be vanished from this earth if we are not fulfilled that.
Right.
Yeah, but why is Allah relaxing? According to cause and effect, we have so many social, ecological problems all over the earth, because what happened is that, the so-called Muslim society, after the 12th century, they, started into a decline. They weren't really following reason and all that. There's certain reasons for that. And Ibn Rushd, Averroes, when he said things are based on cause and effect, what he was talking about, his philosophy, which is the Quranic philosophy, it impacted the whole of Europe. But as I said in something that's not being published, but it is that, you see, the Quran teaches us to use nature, i.e. science, but it also teaches us the nature of use. So for the complete package, you have to use nature, but also you have to know the nature of use. The Western society, what they did is they only took half the message. And as Gary Miller, he said, my old friend, said half the truth is only as good as half a parachute. That's why we have so many problems in the so-called West, and also the East, because we have compounding problems, because now they're trying to copy. They have an inferiority complex. They want to copy what people are doing here. But a lot of people here are looking for a system, that kind of system we're talking about. They're looking for this kind of system, right? So really the punishment of Allah is happening through cause and effect. I think Brother Mumtaz would also agree with that it is happening. It's not that Allah is asleep or something, right?
Okay, you have a question?
I just have a quick answer. As we all believe there is end of the world. And as Mr. Nadeem was talking about in the Quran, he said a lot of stuff, Allah. He said scientists, they just proved it right now, but it was in the Quran a long time ago. It's just whatever is happening. You said mafia. In Syria, Palestine, it's all was planned. From Americans, it's just, there's an ayah which is وَلَنْ تَرْضَى عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُم. they will not accept you, Jews or Christianity, till you follow their deen, their religion. So everything is happening for a reason. So all this is happening, you believe in Mahdi Mutalaq. So he's going to come, just like ISIS. Nobody can fight them. Yeah, nobody can fight them until Mahdi Mutalaq is going to come, and Jesus is going to come down, and they're going to fight all of them. And then it's going to be the end of the world.
All this happening to Muslims?
Okay, that's fine. Okay, we're gonna take last question. We're gonna take last question, and then we're gonna wrap it up. From any of the sisters there?
We
No.
can go to the open area. Leave this.
You know what? Okay, just to kind of keep things into. Okay, just to keep things into perspective.
One hour is not
I totally agree with you. Just to keep things in perspective, we did not actually foresee, mashallah, this big crowd. And topics such as Islam, reason and nature, it's a big topic. So we did not even know the sophistication level of the attendees. So bad on our part. Fine. We'll plan it accordingly next time. Hopefully, inshallah, next time we'll have 3 to 4 hour sessions. Seems like people are more interested into question and answer and discussion topics more so than actually listening to Nadeem or Zishan or me talking. But okay, that apart, we'll take one last question, and then obviously you have our websites and everything else too. You can obviously leave comments there on which topic we should be holding a discussion next quarter. So inshallah we'll work on that as well, and we'll keep all the comments back of our heads before we decide upon the next topic and how we want to organize it as well. We'll take last question, and then we have to wrap it up.
From someone who has
First question and last question, both.
Why don't you guys?
It's interesting.
One question.
Last question for you guys.
Okay, go Osman, and then we end it.
This is a short question. As you mentioned, the Quran is talking about the logic. You talk about the ulama. Ulama means humble. Also, when the Quran said, "Hey, have you looked to the cosmos, the stars, how it has been working?" It's a science for those who think. I'm like a IT guy, right? Maybe he's an English guy. So who are those people who are researching on them? Basically, it's a scientist. So ulama is more like the scientist. It's the audience who has been working on that particular subject, right? So when we are talking about the rational thinking, so many things, and he said, okay, go to the logic, go to the rational thinking, go to the a plus and minus, be truthful. Then what is the relation of these hardcore things with miracles? How you can define miracles?
No, we're not going to discuss miracles here because that's a huge topic. But I want to just say something. I believe what you said is not 100% accurate, and I'll explain.
Sure.
I wish I could bring that verse, but basically that verse is talking about how Allah has created the mountains in different colors. He's created domesticated and non-domestic wild animals, which is interesting too. There's a difference. And then so it's talking about the science, how Allah sends water and this and that. And then it says only those who humble themselves, I think the word is khashiyah, in front of Allah are the people of knowledge. So if you have someone like Stephen Hawking, this is according to the Quran, he is not ulama. He is not ulama because that person is not submitting to Allah. He's not saying that all these amazing things, the Big Bang, this and that, they prove God. He's saying, these things, they don't prove God. According to the Quranic definition, not my definition, that person is not ulama because he doesn't humble himself in front of God. He's actually ignorant. He's an ignorant person, right? Whereas, if you have a farmer, he's never been to a university or anything, and he sees water coming from the clouds, and he sees how the sea is proud, and he says, Alhamdulillah. And he's knowledgeable. He's an ulama because he humbles himself. He realizes cause and effect. So that, according to the Quran, is what ulama is. That is not my definition. That's the Quranic definition. So yeah, that person could be a scientist. There are scientists who say, yes, there's an origin of the universe and it proves that God exists because it couldn't have happened by chance, right? It couldn't happen for vacuum fluctuation because that's something too, right? So that person is a knowledgeable person, right?
So, but he has to do a certain subject knowledge, right? Like your physics, then he become a humble. Then
Yeah.
He has to be humble on his points.
Okay, we'll take leave here now, and then thank you so much for everyone. Thank you all for coming, and inshallah we'll have a next symposium sometime in September, and then hopefully you can all make your presence there again.
Very good.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.